Welcome to the Professionally Evil Perspective. I'm Nathan Sweaney.
And I'm Kevin Johnson. We're all just laughing. It's season 3, episode 12.
You know, I've noticed we get on this and we talk before we actually formally start recording. We
Right,
talk for
beforehand.
like 10 or 15 minutes and we tell all the jokes and we laugh all the things. And then we start recording and we can't be serious, and yet everybody else misses out on the joke. And so I wonder if we should have like a second podcast, which is like all of the absurd,
Yeah, but if half
answer
the
beforehand.
listeners listen to that one, what are we going to have? 2 people
That's
listening to that one?
Yeah, but if 2 people listen to both podcasts, it literally doubles.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, I'll tell a joke. What do you call a book club that gets stuck on one book?
Tell me, Kevin, what do you call a book club?
Church. So I told a friend who I'm not going to name because they also happen to be a customer. And I told the joke to him yesterday, and he said, "It's 66 books."
So clearly he's Protestant because Catholics are like, oh, geez.
So,
okay. That's great.
Okay.
I love that. It's got to be one of our favorite customers because I'm pretty sure I know who would say that. Oh man, what are we talking about today, Kevin?
We are nothing.
Clearly.
So I was talking to Katie Teitler. She does the oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of her newsletter. Oh, Katie, I'm so sorry if you ever hear this. We'll get it. Oh my god, I am completely messed up in the name of her newsletter. And she reached out and said, that's not it. She reached out and said, "Hey, Kevin," she reached out to a group of people. She does this very often. When she's writing something for her newsletter, she'll reach out to the people she knows. And she'll say, "Hey, this is what I'm writing about. This is what I'm thinking about. What do you have anything to add? Do you have anything to write?" And the topic she's writing about, and I don't know when it's, yes, that is it. The Reformed Analyst. Thank you, Josh, the no longer sound engineer, because Kathy is back for her title. And so she was talking about Joe Sullivan and Tim Brown, Uber and SolarWinds. I don't know what that word is, relatively. And the charges, right? Like, they're CISOs. Joe Sullivan, famously known as a former federal prosecutor, if I remember correctly, who became the CISO at Uber he was there during the breach, and was charged and convicted of lying to investigators. He was obstruction of justice, I think, and misapprehension, I think is how you pronounce that. I've only ever read it, so it's one of those words. And basically, he lied. The investigators asked him questions, and he lied to them. Is what he was convicted of. I wasn't there, so I don't know. And then Tim Brown, I keep saying Tom Brown, but his name's Tim. Tim Brown of SolarWinds just recently got a Wells letter. And a Wells letter, for the people who don't know, is my understanding. Again, I only pretend to be a lawyer on Twitter and when I'm listening to Lawyers Behaving Badly, the podcast, which is awesome.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
It is. Have you started listening to it as well?
Not regularly because it's too long, but I've listened to several episodes and I've liked them all. So.
Yeah, that one's really good. We should like ask them if they want to join us one day and see. The other one I really, really love is Serious Trouble with Ken White and Josh something or other. That's a really good one. Yeah. But okay, coming back, a Wells letter is when the SEC is basically notifying a target, not target the store unless they're getting the Wells letter, but that they are investigating something. They are going to, like, basically, hey, look, we're going to charge you, do whatever, right? The thing, it's the heads up. And in my understanding, again, not an attorney, but my understanding is it's basically a heads up saying, we're investigating you for something. And so if you start deleting evidence, you're in trouble. Right?
Yeah.
Like I've thought of it like a legal hold, which it's not a legal hold, but right. And so
Yeah.
Katie was asking questions.
I took it as
Yeah.
sort of a like, hey, we're notifying you that if you start deleting stuff after this, you're going to have to be on record as knowing that the investigation is coming. So it's going to look really suspicious if you deleted a bunch of data.
Yes. And so that absolutely right. That is the thing. So I'm talking to Katie, and I don't want to take any thunder away from her article. I'm sure it's going to be amazing and everything else like that. But during that conversation, one of the things that I think is important to talk about is um is the idea of responsibility for a CISO. And the idea, like in my head, and Nathan, you and I were talking about this morning. In my head, one of the things that we often hear about is people who say, "Oh, I'm working to become a CISO. I want to be a CISO." It's as if that's a natural progression. I was a SOC analyst, then I became a pen tester, then I did some forensics, and now I'm a CISO. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
I think it is a career track within InfoSec. Right, there are people that intentionally go that direction, move into management with the idea that, hey, this is where I'm headed. It's not the only one by far, but it is definitely a well-known career track within, for people that recognize, hey, I enjoy the management side of stuff and I can't be technical forever, so I'm going to kind of go that route.
Yeah, and I think that I know a lot of people that go that route, and they don't understand necessarily the level of responsibility that becoming an executive, a C, we always talk about the C-suite, right? And if I said to you, hey, this company, Enron, right? We're old enough to remember Enron. Fraud, bad stuff, Ponzi scheme, whatever word you want to talk about. If I said to you, the CFO, the chief financial officer, was held accountable to that, right?
Yeah.
My guess is you're not going to be surprised by that.
No, that's
right.
Even if they had no, like, it wasn't their fault.
Right. Yeah.
If they had no involvement in the situation or whatever, if it was just a consequence of the timing that they were in office, whatever, they ultimately bear the final responsibility
at some level, right?
Yeah,
and we can argue whether they should. We can argue whether they, but the reality is most people expect that. So having said that, why were so many people in the InfoSec field surprised that a CISO would be held personally responsible for the security of a system? And again, I'm not arguing they should be. I'm not arguing. I'm wondering why. And this may come across rude, and I know you, Nathan. You know me; I'm never rude.
I've never heard it.
Right? Exactly.
I started to say today, but that's not true.
Okay, that's valid. And but here's my thing: the same people who were up in arms and oh my gosh, and crying their eyes out and tearing at their hair or whatever, that Joe Sullivan was held responsible and that Tim got this Wells letter, are the same people that are like, why don't they take the CISO seriously? Why don't they take InfoSec seriously? Why don't they want? I think the way I phrased it earlier was they want to eat at the adult table for Thanksgiving, but then they're mad they got asked to pass the gravy.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, my laugh is louder than a drum.
That's a great analogy. I think there are a couple things. I think one is, for a long time, and in a lot of cases, a lot of places, this is still the case. The CISO doesn't have that same level of respect and buy-in, right? Like, you've got the CIO, the CEO, the CFO, maybe CTO, but often that's under the CIO. And the CISO is like this, like, a little bit lower level, right? Not quite as important position. And so all of a sudden now it's like, wait, this is being escalated. Oh, this is a big deal.
Yeah. I think that actually brings up something I think we should we as an industry should be thinking about is, okay, we're not being taken seriously as much as we think we should be always, right?
Sure.
Yet we have that responsibility.
Yeah. Well, and
Right.
that's the second part about it is people have been clamoring for years in our industry that the CISO should be there. And so I wonder if some of the surprise, and I don't want to call it outrage, let's just, it's drama, right? The social media drama is related to, hey, we've been saying this and now it's finally happening.
Yeah.
That is newsworthy, I think. I don't know if it's as surprising that we're finally there.
I'll agree with. I also think I would be concerned if I was a CISO.
Oh, absolutely.
If I'm not getting the traction. Now, keep in mind that many times security doesn't get the traction because security doesn't present it to the business correctly.
Sure. Yeah,
right.
they've got to
We've
be
had
able to
that
speak
conversation before.
both languages.
Right. So whatever the reason is, if I was the CISO and I'm not being taken seriously enough, or they're not at least acknowledging and evaluating my feedback and input, right? I'll go back to lawyers behaving badly, right? One of the things they talk about quite often in their episodes is not the lawyer they're talking about, but the surrounding staff, right? And you go and work, and they say, because both of them were in-house counsel at some point in their career, and they both talk quite often about, if you're in-house counsel, you have to be prepared at any time to quit. And basically not quit just like screw this job and take this job and shove it, or whatever that song was from the 60s, right? Or whatever it was. But Kathy's like, no, not the 60s. I don't know when that song was. I just remember as a kid I heard it.
I'm gonna guess the 80s, but I
don't know. I always thought it was an old song when I heard it the first time. That's all. But that the idea was, as in-house counsel, and I would argue as a CISO, you have to be prepared to say, this is a hill I'm going to die on. We have to, I'm telling you this is bad. I'm telling you this is not good. I'm telling you this is going to have a problem. And then they don't take the thing.
Yeah.
Done. Here's my resignation. Get somebody else to be responsible for this mess.
Well,
right?
And I think another side of that is they've got to be willing to be the scapegoat, right? When, hey, we made this decision, we moved forward and we did this thing, it caused these problems, or maybe it wasn't an intentional decision, but maybe it was just the result of our business model. Something happened. Somebody's got to be the scapegoat that gets fired so that we move on, right? We're like, was it Experian that got compromised, or Equifax? And everybody made a big deal about the CISO, not being educated enough. She had a music degree or something like that. Do you remember that?
I don't remember if that was Experian, but yes, I do remember.
I think it was Equifax. Whoever it was.
Equifax, whatever. Yes.
If I remember correctly, that CISO ended up being let go in large part, and I may be confusing the stories, but in large part, the one I'm thinking of, not because they were, responsible for what happened in terms of they did it, but in terms of something has to change so the media story will move on and we can continue doing stuff, other stuff. So at some point, the business has to say, hey, you may be a great leader, but we got to have somebody else in here just so we can move on and get things done.
Right. I think it's on both sides, right? Yeah. And I think that this is, it's, and I'm jumping a little bit on topics, but this is one of the things I've always found funny about virtual CISOs or fractional CISOs. Yeah. And I want to be very clear. I'm not saying they're bad. I've got some good friends that do amazing work for companies that need security advice, but I'm always hesitant to call them a CISO because I don't know how you can take personal responsibility for an organization that you don't work for full time.
Yeah.
Right. Like that. And look, hey, all of you out there, the 6 of you listening, feel free. Tell me how that is. If you're a virtual CISO, I want to hear how you react to Tim Brown. How are you going to handle that? If SolarWinds had a fractional CISO or a virtual CISO, what would the SEC do?
Yeah, I've seen different levels of responsibility because a lot of times, like when we meet with clients and we're scoping out a pen test or working with them, you've got some. I mean, and I guess it's the same for both CISOs and virtual CISOs. You've got some CISOs that are really active and involved, and they know what needs to happen, and they're directly involved, and others who are hands off, and they're like, you know what, just do it. I'm here to listen. The same with virtual CISOs. You have some that are telling the organization, this is what you need to do. This is what I recommend. This is how we need to move forward. And then there's a lot of them that are just kind of like, you know what, you guys make your best decision. I will provide some feedback if you ask me, but I'm not going to put my neck on the line in case this goes bad.
Well, and those are the ones that I think of are more, I'm a consultant.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I say is, if you take on the title CISO, how do you handle that in your contracts? How do you handle it? How does the third party like the SEC handle it?
What about pay? I mean, traditionally CISOs aren't paid. I mean, they're going to be higher than a manager, senior manager, director, that kind of thing.
But not a CEO or CFO.
Not traditionally paid anywhere near, C-level.
Well, and I would argue that part of that, if you're general counsel for a company, if you're a CFO for a company, if you're part of that risk is offset by compensation.
Yeah.
Right.
I think this goes a little bit back to our conversation maybe a few months ago about board of directors needing to have InfoSec knowledgeable people on the board.
Oh, please tell me that wasn't months ago.
I don't remember when it was. It's far enough back that it's left my current memory.
Okay. I'm like, man, that feels like it was just yesterday. I know it wasn't. But so it's somewhere between yesterday and months ago.
Yeah.
You're right. It's very relevant to that.
And I wonder if things like this are going to drive more organizations taking the CISO seriously, raising the pay, having a higher class of, right now, like you said earlier, CISO is often just the next step for, a director of InfoSec to continue moving forward. We don't have the same type of hiring.
I want to be clear. I know a number of CISOs. Alyssa Miller is a good example, right? She is not a CISO because it was the next step.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I know you know that, but I want to make it clear to the recording there's lots of people that are CISOs that they understand what that means.
Yeah.
But then I talk to other people and it's like, I was just talking to I say kid right out of college, because I'm old, and I asked them, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? Because they were talking to me about how do I get into InfoSec and everything else like that.
Yeah.
And they literally outlined it as, I want to be a pen tester, because of course that's sexy and cool and whatever, right? And I want to be a pen tester, and then I want to be a CISO, and that,
bam, bam,
right, boom. And I said, well, I don't think it works that way. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And they acknowledged that there might be other steps. Sure. But that was what their ultimate goal was, to be a CISO. And I actually said to them, like, do you know what that means? And I like Kathy's, I want to be a dishwasher, then the chef. I know how to cook because I washed that pan.
Are there differences there? I don't know.
Oh, Nathan, you need to be nice to Kathy right now, because Monday you're going to be in the same city.
Oh my. So I think we're wrapping up here, but I gotta tell my favorite CISO story. We were on site with a client.
I love the fact
that I have a favorite.
And I don't care what the topic is. We have a favorite that topic story. Yeah. Like, our lives and jobs have been at least interesting enough to ourselves,
right?
To be like, you know what? I've got my favorite moths in a hotel room story. By the way, that's a real story.
Yeah.
Go on with your favorite CISO story.
So we're doing some pen testing for a large government agency. This is a few years back, before DHS kind of took over a lot of that responsibility. And I can't tell you who it was. I won't tell you who it was, but you could probably go look it up, because I think that's all public, actually. But anyways, we're doing this contract for them. It was bad. I mean,
it was very, bad. I love it. It was bad. I want to be very clear. Our testing wasn't bad. Oh, the results were bad for them.
This is one of those, like, one of the largest 3-letter.
Nope. Just go. Government agency, very big.
By Monday, like 10 a.m., we've got domain admin access, right? I mean, it was just like that type of bad. So Tuesday, Wednesday, I don't remember. The CISO brings us in. He's the acting CISO or something like that, and getting ready to be official.
I love that title, acting.
Yeah. So he brings us in, and he's got a box of chocolate Twinkies, but he has had some graphic designer person modify it. So it says crap-filled Twinkies, and it's on a shelf. And he says that, and he tells us, he says, I have this up here because this reminds me of this whole organization. And I know
I forgot about this.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. He tells us, he says, I know everything is bad. He says, the question I have for you is I'm trying to figure out from a career perspective, should I stay here? Is this fixable? And then I can take credit for it and move up, typical bureaucrat. Or should I jump ship now before it becomes public how bad it is?
Yeah, let me be very clear. Let me be very, very clear. If you are taking career advice from the results of your pen test, I know the answer.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh God, that's awful. I completely forgot about that one. I wasn't there. Just to be clear,
I
was not there. But yes, we talked about it. Wasn't it Jason Wood?
No, I think it was Jason Gillum.
Might have been Jason Gillum.
It was one of the other.
It wasn't Jason. It was
one of the other. Jason. Yeah. Anyway, good.
Hey, next time we talk to Jason, you can guess which one I mean. We'll just go chocolate Twinkie and see what he says.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get some for our all hands meeting next week.
It's next week. Do they even make Twinkies anymore?
I don't know. We'll have to figure it out.
Yeah, just in case you know, if anybody listening is in the Jacksonville area next week, and by the way, I think we're publishing this hopefully before next week, but probably not. If you're in Jacksonville, swing by. Everybody in the company except for one person will be in the office.
As someone who has tried to organize the schedule, I'm picturing how horrible this is going to go. We'll see. Awesome. Kevin, it's been good. I'll chat with you
always.
next time.